Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S MindLab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why you reach for a comforting snack when you are stressed or after you've had a sugary treat? Does stress make you crave food, or does eating something sweet change how you feel about food when you are under pressure? Well, this new study dives right into that. This research explores a really common experience when you are feeling stressed or after you've eaten something sweet. We all know that stress can sometimes lead to eating more, especially comfort foods. But the exact way this happens and whether it is always the same for everyone is still a bit of a mystery. Scientists are particularly interested in two key players: stress hormones like cortisol and the sugar in our blood from food. They wanted to see if eating sugar beforehand changes how you crave food during stress, and if the body's stress response itself affects those cravings. So here's what the researchers did. They gathered 62 healthy adults who came into the lab having not eaten for about 5 hours. They randomly divided them into 4 groups. Some people got a drink with glucose, which is a type of sugar, and others got just plain water. Then they were either put through a stressful situation or a friendly, non-stressful situation. Think of it like a fake public speaking test with evaluators versus a relaxed chat. After all this, they asked everyone about their food cravings again. They also measured their stress hormone levels, specifically cortisol, and their blood sugar many times throughout the experiment to see how things changed. The experiment worked as planned. The people who drank the sugary solution had higher blood sugar, and the stressful situation really did make their cortisol levels go up. These are good signs that the experiment was set up correctly to actually test their questions. Now, for the fascinating results, what they found was actually a bit surprising and went against some common ideas. It turns out that the stronger your body reacted to stress, meaning your cortisol went up more, the less you craved food. It wasn't just stress either. The bigger the jump in blood glucose from the sugary drink, the less food craving people reported. This is the opposite of what some people might expect, where stress or sugar might ramp up cravings. They also looked to see if the sugar and the stress response worked together to influence cravings. They didn't find any strong evidence that they did. It seems like the sugar's effect on blood glucose and the stress hormone's effect on cortisol might act somewhat independently in these immediate post-stress moments. What does this all mean? The researchers suggest that when you are facing a short, moderate amount of stress, the signals from your body about energy availability, like your blood sugar levels from having eaten something, might actually have a bigger impact on your immediate food cravings than the stress hormones themselves. So, eating something might actually help reduce cravings even when you are stressed out. This is a really important point. While we often hear that stress makes us want to eat more, this study suggests that for some people, and in these specific conditions, acute stress and the rise in cortisol might actually do the opposite and temporarily reduce food cravings, particularly that feeling of hunger. The study really focused on this interplay between what you eat, how your body responds to stress, and what you are craving. The researchers wanted to untangle which factor or combination of factors plays the biggest role. To measure food craving, they used a questionnaire that looks at different aspects of craving, like just wanting to eat something, looking forward to the pleasure of eating, wanting to eat to feel better, feeling like you can't control your eating, and that feeling of physical hunger. They confirmed that the stressful version of their test, the psychosocial stress test or TSST, really did make people feel more stressed and raise their cortisol levels significantly more than the friendly control version. One of the most striking findings was that food craving actually went up in the friendly, non-stressful control group, but it didn't increase in the group that was actually stressed. Even better, the higher someone's cortisol response was, the more their food craving went down. This is a really interesting twist on the common idea of stress eating. Looking at the sugar, they found that a bigger rise in blood glucose after drinking the sugary solution was linked to lower cravings across almost all aspects they measured. People reported less desire to eat, less anticipation of pleasure from eating, less feeling of lack of control over eating, and even less physical hunger. It seems that taking in calories, at least in this form, acted as a powerful cue to reduce cravings. This is a key takeaway. The study implies that in situations of moderate short-term stress, the body's immediate response to having consumed calories might actually be a stronger driver for reducing cravings than the stress hormones themselves. It is like your body says, okay, we've got some energy coming in, maybe we don't need to crave food right now. Even with this stress, however, the interpretation of this finding needs careful consideration of the high glucose dose, 75 g, that was administered and may have confounded the results by inducing satiety. Center now, it is important to think about the limitations. The researchers themselves point out that the amount of sugar they gave was quite high. This might have made people feel full or satisfied, which naturally reduces cravings and might have masked other effects. It's like a strong signal that could potentially drown out subtler ones. Another important point is that the participants probably knew if they got the sugary drink or water because of the taste. This means the researchers couldn't be perfectly sure if the results were purely from the sugar's effect or from what the participants expected to happen because they knew they had sugar. This is called a loss of blinding and can affect how people report their experiences. They suggest in the future, using a non-caloric sweetener might help to separate the effect of the sweet taste from the actual metabolic effect of sugar. Scroll first. The cortisol increases in this study that were evoked through the TSST stress condition were relatively weak compared with other studies. C-Center, they also noted that the stress response in this particular study was not as strong as in some other research, using similar stress tests. This might mean that they didn't have a strong enough stressor to see the full expected effects of stress on craving. Even though the stress response was modest and the sugar effect was quite strong, they still saw that cortisol reactivity did have an impact, negatively correlating with craving. This suggests that both what we eat and how our stress system responds are important factors in controlling our cravings. It's not just one or the other, but a complex mix. The researchers also explored if there were differences between men and women. While previous studies suggest women might be more prone to emotional eating and men to reward driven eating, in this study, they didn't find significant sex differences. They do mention that their sample size might have been too small to detect these differences, so it's an area that needs more research. So, what's the big picture here? This study adds important information to our understanding of how stress and food interact. It suggests that while stress hormones do play a role, the immediate metabolic signals from food intake, like rising blood sugar, can be very powerful in reducing cravings, even under mild stress. It also challenges the idea that stress universally increases cravings, showing that for some people it might actually decrease them. Moving forward, researchers need to confirm these findings with more people and perhaps with stronger stressors to see if those stress-induced reductions in craving hold up. It would also be great to look more closely at how sex, and even things like monthly hormonal cycles in women, might influence these responses. And what does this mean for us in the real world? It hints that maybe having a balanced snack before a stressful event might actually help manage cravings afterward, rather than avoid eating altogether. It also suggests that our bodies are complex, and our responses to stress and food aren't always straightforward. They can be influenced by what we eat, how stressed we are, and also by our individual biology. This research is a step towards understanding these complex interactions and could one day help us find better ways to help people who struggle with stress, related eating, and weight management. Thanks for joining me today on RUBIN'S MindLab. If you found this interesting, please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more breakdowns of fascinating science research. See you next time.